Everyone. Thank you for joining. Oh, I just have to change the camera here. Okay, let's start with some prayers. In the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly, we take refuge until we attain enlightenment. Through the merit of practicing generosity and the rest, may we attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. In the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly, we take refuge until we attain enlightenment. Through the merit of practicing generosity and the rest, may we attain Buddhahood for the sake of all beings. In the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly, we take refuge until we attain enlightenment. Through the merit of practicing generosity and the rest, may we attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. May all sentient beings enjoy happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the sacred happiness devoid of suffering. And may they dwell in boundless equanimity that is free from attachment and aversion. Thank you. And welcome to this Bodhichitta session. Yeah, I thought we focused today really on the Bodhicharyavatar, because the last time it was always on special days, and then there were so many other topics to discuss. So today I thought we focus solely on Shantideva's wisdom. And in case you remember, we are still in chapter 6. So this is on patience, and Shantideva is giving us many different tools or perspectives or ways of looking at things in situations where we usually tend to be impatient or angry or revengeful. And yeah, and we always have our justifications or excuses why we think it is okay in that situation to be angry. And Shantideva is basically going through them like one by one, and is always showing us the absurdity of these justifications, or yeah, the invalidity of those, and is always encouraging us to practice loving kindness, compassion, or patience instead of hatred or irritation or intolerance. And so the whole chapter is about patience. And first, the anger and the side effects of anger are explained. And then the main part in which we are in is about cultivating patience in different situations, like if we experience suffering directly, or where we are at the moment, like verse 61 or 62. There it is about cultivating patience if somebody is disrespectful towards us. And then also, I hope today we can finish or we can start and finish the cultivation of patience if our loved ones are treated badly. And then next session, we can discuss on how to cultivate patience when somebody is helping our enemies or is kind or supportive to them, in case we have enemies. So, but today, we are, I think, in verse 61 or 2, and that is, how to deal with those difficult situations where we are usually like a default reflex, where we are reacting with patience, with impatience or anger when somebody is, is disrespectful to us, or showing a lot of contempt, or is insulting us. So this is, I think, where we are at. So let me try to find the verses. Also, for those who are here more regularly, I wanted to confess, that the previous month, there was always like one session per month. And so from now onwards, I think let's do 2 again. Otherwise, the gaps are too big. And yes, Emily, we stopped with 61, but maybe just to get into it again, let's start with 61. And yeah, I show it to you. So what use will be the life of one who only commits evil if for the sake of material gain he causes the merits needed for life to degenerate? So here, yeah, that's a little bit out of context. So the idea actually in verse 60 is, maybe we can go there, that we may think, yeah, material wealth is super important. It will enable us to live properly. And with this material wealth, we can dispel all problems. And then Shantideva is saying, but if we are angry on the account of accumulating wealth or worldly gains, like good positions and so on, if we do that with a negative intention or negative emotions like trickery or deceiving others, then that is not really helpful. And then Shantideva is saying in 61, which we also discussed last time already, he's saying then, what is then the purpose or aim? When the purpose or aim of our life is to do something positive and to benefit others, and maybe even if we think like that, maybe even have some wealth, because that is maybe a good tool to help others. But if in order to get this, we just create more and more negativities and more and more negative emotions, and we habituate with them and therefore also create negative karmas, then that doesn't make any sense, because then our life will only degenerate, and also the consequences that we have to suffer from those negative actions or emotions will sort of wait for us. Okay, and now, so that is sort of the context. And now there comes this strange justification. So, sorry, the beginning is a little bit strange today. So we say, so in 62, Shantideva is saying, no, the whole thing, I'm never doing for myself, but I'm only concerned about others. If somebody is insulting me, then I'm not really concerned about myself, but others might have a strange or wrong image of me, and they will lose trust in me, and I'm so important. So if they lose trust in me, then their merit degenerates, and they are not really on the path of virtue anymore, but they create more kleshas and karma, and that will make them fall into lower realms. And so that's why if somebody is insulting me, it's justified to get angry. So the idea here is we try to justify that, yes, I'm a bodhisattva, so therefore it is good if people have faith in me. But then if a third person is coming and inciting me, and let's say the students of mine, they see that, then they lose trust, and they leave the path, and then they fall into lower realms, all this thing. That is our justification here, or an attempt of that, why we should be angry with the person who is insulting me, and why we should stop this person, So that is what we are trying to say here in the first two lines. Surely I should be angry with those who say unpleasant things that weaken other beings' confidence in me. And then to that, Shantideva is saying, yeah, but in the same way, why I'm not angry with people who say unpleasant things about others. So Shantideva is saying, if we have that justification, then we should also be angry if a second person is insulting a third person, and we are not even involved, then we should also be angry, because that will have the same consequences. But obviously we don't care if somebody else is insulting a third person. So here already, but it will be clearer in the next verses, Shantideva is showing us, that this justification is what is it, like hypocrisy, because we only apply it to ourselves, but we have a totally different view or perspective in regards to others. It will make sense soon, in case you didn't do it yet. So please. So 63. So we might think in between these verses, so we might think if another person is insulting a third person, I don't, that is out of my business, sort of, that must be their karma, I'm not in charge for that, and they say many bad things to each other because maybe somebody misbehaved, but that is not my business, basically. So again, we are justifying, therefore, we are not getting angry if a second person is insulting a third person. So that might be our doubt or argument against Shantideva. We might say, oh, this is like dependent origination between these two people. So therefore, there's no need for me to get angry. And then the whole verse here is an answer to that by Shantideva, where he says, if I can patiently accept this lack of confidence because it is related to someone else, so if you have that view about two other people insulting each other, then why I'm not patient with unpleasant words about myself? So when somebody's insulting me, why are you then not patient, since they are related to the arisal of disturbing conceptions? So this is based on many verses before, that the other person who's insulting us, this other person is totally out of control, and because he or she is under the control of anger or hatred, misperception, ignorance, and therefore this person is insulting me, and so his anger, let's say, or hatred is also a dependent arising. So Shantideva is saying, if you say person A is insulting person B, and that is a dependent arising because of their karma or whatever, and therefore you're not interfering, then likewise, Shantideva is saying here, if somebody's insulting you, that is also, of course, also a dependent arising. First of all, between both of you, because that is the karma between both of you. And then this other person is not angry just like that, accidentally or without any cause, but this person is controlled by the kleshas. So the kleshas, they arise dependently, like based on ignorance, based on the wrong view, and so on. so therefore, if your argument is, I'm not getting angry when other people fight, let's say, because that is a dependent arising, then Shantideva is saying you should also not get angry if somebody is fighting with you or insulting you, because they are also dependent arising is in play. And so, and this is sort of the end of this part of chapter 6, which was from verse 52 to 63 here, where Shantideva is encouraging us, never to take these things personally. If somebody else is harming us, with insults, not come up with strange justifications, but just have a better understanding that, everything is, the whole situation that we are in, if it's a difficult situation, then it is based on so many causes and conditions that are not under our control. And also our so-called enemy is not in control, but he or she is so much under control of his or her emotions. And as I said, not understanding the situation properly. And we are in the same positions, we also are under the control of our emotions and our habits, and therefore not seeing the situation properly. And so if these two people come together, then we are sort of bound to have misunderstandings, and feel insulted, or even maybe insulting somebody else. And therefore, it is not necessary to be angry, but to have more understanding of the situation, more empathy with the other person, and if possible, even like compassion with that other person, because the other person is not not in control, and because of us is maybe getting angry, and therefore creating many negative thoughts and negative karma, which will lead them to have more suffering. Yeah, it was a little bit strange, these last verses, because they were a little bit out of context. So I hope they still made sense to you. If not, please tell me if there was something unclear. And then afterwards we go to the next bigger topic here in the chapter, where we practice patience if somebody is acting badly towards our loved ones. So please let me know if there's anything to discuss about this topic of these previous verses. Ishani.
Hello, Arne. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the session.
Namaste.
Good to see so many familiar faces. So, Arne, when I've contemplated about this, like around this paragraph and this chapter before, it seems to me that there are many types of people, but at least two types of people. One of whom always put the blame on the other. So if there is a situation of like anger, they always think it's the other person's fault. And then there's a whole group of people who always think it's their own fault. So if someone's angry at them, even if a person they do not know behaves in an angry way, their instinctive reaction is, I must have done something, So I feel that both of them are kind of flawed, right? Like taking or incomplete understanding of the dependent relationship. Because if we take it all on ourselves too, I don't necessarily think that's helpful. It leads to other sets of defilements, right?
That is such a cheeky psychologist question. Because yes, if we just do it like how we do it normally, either we blame always the other person because they are stupid and they do things wrong. That of course is, that is obviously wrong, But then yes, some people, and Shantideva is not talking about them here, but some people, they always think they are guilty or to blame because they have maybe a not enough self-confidence or something like that. I don't know. Did you refer to that, Ishani? Or?
No, I don't think it's lack of self-confidence. It's just kind of giving the other person the benefit of the doubt, you know?
Yeah. Okay, because I understood it like, that's why I said cheeky psychologist questions, you know, I think there are some mental characters also where one always thinks one is to blame, you know, and whatever something in a group or situation is going wrong, then we think, yeah, it was me, you know, I created that. I was thinking that you were talking about that, but okay, but here in the text, Shantideva is mainly trying to counteract our tendency when we point fingers to others, you know, and he's saying in one verse, I think quite explicitly, you know, that if everything is like dependent origination, you know, and his karma, my karma, her emotions, my emotions, you know, all of that coming together, and therefore we are fighting, and therefore I'm perceiving him or her as an enemy. So there are so many factors coming together. Why we always single out him or her as the bad guy, you know? Why don't we see our sides as well, you know? So therefore Shantideva is trying to instead of pointing outwardly, he is maybe to an extreme pointing to oneself, so that we are maybe then finding the balance afterwards, you know. But as a mind training, he's going a little bit to the extreme. You know, that one teacher once talked about you know, eternalism and nihilism. You know, if you are on one extreme, we always think everything is solid and truly existent, you know, then maybe the teachers sometimes have to teach a little bit more to the extreme of emptiness, as if there is nothingness, so that people more easily come to the middle, you know, because if they would start with the middle, then maybe that's not strong enough. So they have to go a little bit to the other extreme to have a stronger remedy, so that the student is finding the middle more swiftly. So and I think these Lojong teachings like these, where it is always said, yeah, we should drive all blame into one, which is ourself or our ego. These are meant to therefore being an even stronger antidote to our egoistic patterns. What do you think? Did I answer? Did it relate, or was it still something else?
No, it definitely, I think the point you made is that this is directed towards the type of people who always assign the blame outwardly. I think this is very useful, because there is definitely a lot of people who assign always blame inwardly, and I anticipate that there are different antidotes for them, right?
Yes.
So we are talking here about just one part of the blame game.
Yes, that's how I understand it. Like I think yeah, in the 7th chapter, you know, there the other blame game is a little bit addressed, where we always think we are bad or we are making everything wrong, and so we might have like a inferior complex, or we are discouraging ourselves or disparaging ourselves, even getting auto-aggressive. And that is like the 3rd type of laziness. So that's how Abhidharma is putting it. And for that, the antidote is Buddha nature, you know, like remember Buddha nature, remember the qualities of that these qualities of a Buddha are inherent in us, you know, and therefore that is a great antidote to thinking, yeah, I'm guilty, I'm bad, you know, I'm incompetent, or yeah.
Thank you, Arne.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, for those maybe who didn't read so much about Shantideva, yeah. So these chapters in the middle, let's say chapter 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, they are very much like Lojong teachings, like mind training teachings, where we deliberately a little bit ignore what is happening outside, or we are never going into the content of stories, because if we go into the content of stories, like, yes, she did this and that, and last year she said that, and he did that, if we go into that, then we always stimulate and trigger our anger and so on. So that is sort of renounced here, to a quite what is it, extreme maybe, but or very thoroughly, maybe that's better. and we are only working on ourselves, never on somebody out there, so our enemies, even though we call them enemies sometimes, out there, are not the real enemies, but our real enemy, whom we are fighting, are our habits, negative emotions, and so on. And so that is always the focus of Shantideva. So in some chapters, he's often addressing himself like, oh, mind, why are you, or why are you doing this or that? And of course, he's inviting us to do the same, so that we look inwardly. As I said, we don't look into the contents or the story, why why maybe it's justified that we are angry, but we are only looking inside and checking why we are angry. I mean, how anger arises, and how painful that is, and how destructive that is for ourselves and others, and then what kind of preventive measures could be done so that it's not arising. Yeah, so we are looking into our mind and using the whole Dharma like a mirror, to see ourselves, and not looking outside like through a window to see the faults in others. Yeah, that is very Shantideva-esque. And Shantideva, of course, has it from all these great Kadamba masters, all these geshes that are so difficult to distinguish, like Geshe Potava, Geshe Shikava, Geshe da-da-da. And anything else? Or Emilia? Wait, just say he has it from them. I didn't mean that, but they were systematizing it later, and really practicing it, because they lived 400 years later or 300. Emilia. Yes.
And it's just, there are situations where, lots of situations where I find it challenging to feel, I feel more frustrated than really like angry, like feeling like screaming, but feeling frustrated or annoyed about something. So to understand that, who is the one who's feeling frustrated, or annoyed, and it goes with aversion and all of it. So intellectually, to understand it and see that there is really no need to go that way, but asking who is the one. But at the same time, there are many situations where I also feel that they are not to be like, I couldn't care less. They would need some action, but it's to separate the action in relation to some stuff that may not be okay from all the frustration that drives the action into doing something. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so, I didn't hear the question mark yet. That's why I'm looking how I look. Yes, it makes sense. And then?
I don't know if I really, well, if I have a question, would be how to how to make a separation between action and not having the frustration. So acting, but without feeling the frustration. How to make it happen more often, because I see myself finding it difficult not to be frustrated. So the frustration arises, and then I go, okay, who is the one frustrated? Why are you frustrated? But the frustration has already happened. And then, you know, it's not being in a position where it doesn't happen, or as it's kind of starting and already, who is the one, or something along those lines. So not letting it arise, and even to decide if there is an action to be taken or not.
Yeah, but frustration will arise like for a long time. And I think it's already an achievement if we recognize our tiny aversion, you know, when it's still on the level of frustration, if we recognize it at that level before it is a full-grown anger or hatred or revenge or rage. So like earlier in chapter 6, Shantideva is saying, yeah, our anger and hatred, they are born out of small irritations, you know, small bitternesses, small frustrations. So therefore, please be very watchful with your mind and mindful and aware, so that you notice these tiny sprouts that could turn into the whole tree of anger, and then work with these sprouts, because they are so fragile and tender, so they are more workable than a full-grown tree. So therefore, I think it's a good news if you notice frustrations, and then if you don't know what to do with it, then maybe follow chapter 5's advice: remain like a log of wood. You know, just don't do anything. not with body, no physical action, not a verbal action, not a mental action. Just like be you're of course you're still alive, and you are like flexible, you know, like wood is, but you're not acting based on the frustration. But like noticing an anger in that baby state is super good. And when we think that it's easy to be free of those tiny frustrations, that I think is sort of not right, because they will last, you know. Like we have so many, I mean, we are basically driven through attachment or hope, you know, or aversion or fear, and so this aversion, this tiny aversion or frustration is like this will last, you know, really. Like even Bhumi Bodhisattvas have that in post-meditation.
Well, in my case, it lasts because I keep, it takes me sometimes forever contemplating what to do, or even if I'm going to do something, which means the thing is like growing there, you know, kind of. And then what to do? Do I act or not, rather than being impulsive? I have sometimes the impulsive things, but it really annoys me. I don't like, because it gets a lock, as if it gets hold, as if, you know, there is a frustration, and there is the hold on it, and then thinking about it, and I go into, can be even sometimes quite obsessive, like thinking and trying to analyze, and I find that exhausting.
Yeah, and therefore Shantideva said, be like a log of wood, you know, like mentally also, you know, don't do anything with it, you know, don't analyze, don't, you know, don't like really with body, speech and mind, just don't react to that frustration, you know, just leave it there, you know. And like in meditation instructions, we say, you know, let it come, abide and dissolve, you know, by itself. But we are not really interfering much. We are not getting entangled in the story, and also we don't create another frustration that we are frustrated, you know, because that aversion against aversion, yeah, makes it bigger. It's like a double problem now, you know, we're only doubling our problem. That is not helpful. Therefore, this meditative approach is, I think, the best, you know, but is also taught in chapter 4 and 5, you know, just notice the frustration, but then don't give fuel to it. That's what Shantideva is saying in the 6th chapter. But also don't fight it so much, you know, but just either let it come and go, or maybe just apply an antidote, for example, compassion. Okay. Or in chapter 9, wisdom, or in chapter 8, practice Tonglen based on compassion. But yeah, first of all, yeah, I think it's if at ours or at my stage, it's a cause for celebration, you know, to notice the anger when it's so small, like frustration or irritation, you know, because then if I just leave it as it is, you know, it's not creating a big damage. And then the Jangshub is saying frustration is a good sign, because once a long time ago, one princess kept the palace because of that. So so yes and no. So it depends, of course, then also with what you are frustrated with, you know. If you are frustrated with maybe in me, how unclear my answer is, I think that is something else that is sort of reasonable, you know. but Prince Siddhartha had more this, like, maybe it's similar, yeah. So Prince Siddhartha had this genuine heart of sadness, you know, where he was really like so sad with how how every beings are suffering so endlessly and unnecessarily. And yeah, he was frustrated with that. So I think that is even a better frustration, yeah, or depression. But the usual egoistic depression that we have, or frustration, yeah, I think that's a little bit different. But maybe sometimes you're also frustrated, like Prince Siddhartha, you know, you're frustrated for a good cause, you know, maybe even with yourself, you know, because you think your progress is too slow. So therefore, yeah, Jangshub's idea to maybe look at some frustrations are maybe really a good sign, because you are noticing what is it? Yeah, you're noticing situations that are really like unnecessarily suffering and that are confused. And you develop a strong renunciation and wish to get liberated from that. That is, of course, also a good thing. Sorry, I'm not really talking very
No, it's making a lot of sense, Arne. Okay. Well, we are just in the middle of one of those, you know, yeah. Just seeing everything that's happening in the world with this virus, and just having to accept, and yeah, it's generating me a lot of, come on, Emilia, move on, so you can actually do something useful to help in a much more significant way. You know, is a lot of ignorance, big time.
Yeah.
With the virus situation, and how people are behaving and not caring and so on. You know, I live in a country that I think Sweden thinks they can just eject coronavirus, to just open everything. I'm being sarcastic, because I find that absolutely crazy. And that generates a lot of frustration in me. But it's
yeah, and for me, then one other verse by Shantideva helps me a lot, you know, if we use the word frustration, you know, if I cannot solve a situation, you know, then there is also no need to be frustrated, you know, and if I can solve it, there's also no need to be frustrated. So the first part, you know, if it's obvious something that I can't really change and don't have any influence on it, then the only thing what frustration is doing is like blocking myself, you know, and making my own life miserable. And I don't know, for me that is helpful, just to remember, it really doesn't serve a benefit, Yes, it comes from a good place, like Prince Siddhartha, because yes, Prince Siddhartha is seeing the mishaps or the situations that should or could be better, but the situation is just very difficult. So therefore, yes, it's born out of seeing something what is true, but then, yeah, being frustrated about it is not helping. That is then turning into aversion in a way.
Yeah. I I know intellectually I know what you mean, but I still feel I know there is the aversion there. I can intellectually say you are feeling aversion. This is not it's not getting you anywhere. It's just creating more imprints of aversion, which I don't want to.
But it doesn't have to be intellectual, because if I'm frustrated about the things that I can't change, this frustration has the quality of lasting very long. So I can easily feel it for 2 days, let's say, and then it's very like first-hand experience that is only having side effects on me. It's not helping anyone, but the opposite. It's really like blocking me to do something else what is good. Yeah, so yeah, and seeing that situation is, for me, it's not only intellectually, but it's really like experientially.
Oh no, I mean it's experiential, but to intellectually telling myself that you are feeling aversion and this is not, why you're feeling aversion. There is nothing you can do about that. So it's like my own internal dialogue, but doesn't mean the aversion goes away like that.
No. And another thing, what I said earlier, for me, also just applying an antidote is good, like focusing on something else, or trying to just do tonglen with those people I'm frustrated with, or sending love, or generating understanding or empathy. That normally is melting down, I think, a lot of frustration, in me at least. Because love is the answer, we know that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, yeah. I'll work on that. Arne.
Right, for example, Pallavi,
Thanks.
in the Uttara Tantra Shastra, we had the quality of compassion in the Sangha, I think, and that is like moistening, moistening our heart, heart, or like our hardness, So yeah, for me, if I put myself in the shoes of others, I have more understanding of others or the situation, then it helps me to dissolve that frustration. And I think it's good to dissolve it, because if it's like chronifying, I don't know if you can say that in English, then it what's that? Yeah. If it's like if it's getting chronified,
chronic.
Then it's becoming like a constant bitterness in our character, and that is, and then we become cynical and all of that. That is also not helping anyone.
Yeah, thanks, Arne.
Thank you. Okay, let's jump to the next verses. Wait, where have we been here? I lost them because I was looking for something here. 64. So now, now the main thing is, we might hopefully, if Ishani, your hand is still up there, but that's like an antique hand, right? So it's nothing fresh, right? So until now we hopefully we have been convinced by Shantideva that yes, we can stand a little contempt and suffering and injustice if somebody is insulting us or creating difficult situations for us. But now we might think, but it's still okay, to be angry if somebody's treating our loved ones badly. Loved ones are, I don't know, our friends, families, partners, teachers, so we might justify our anger in those situations, so we are not the victim sort of, but we are observing that our loved ones are the victim. And then it says here 64, should others talk badly or even destroy holy images, reliquaries, and the sacred Dharma? So if somebody, like maybe with a dogmatic view even, or yeah, with anger, is like physically destroying statues, stupas, or verbally inciting, maybe also text, like it could be everything that is representing Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. That is the topic here, because Shantideva was talking to Buddhists. So yes, for Buddhists, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha are sort of sacred or super important. So yeah, if somebody maybe from another religion, with a perverted view or dogmatism, is then full of hatred, destroying temples and so on, then even then, Shantideva is saying it is improper for me to resent it. Yeah, as the Bodhisattva training, it's not necessary to be angry. But as we discussed often, like this doesn't mean that we are happy about it or that we are just passive, but we are just trying to keep a peaceful mind, so that we have more space and clarity to react properly or to think properly. And here, what are we supposed to think? That the Buddhas can never be injured. And that is, of course, true not only for the Buddhas, but also for the Dharma, actually, the Buddhas or Dharma, they cannot really be injured. If we talk about Dharma as Buddha Dharma, then yes, of course, it can be injured, but not actually from outside so much. If somebody is like from another religion is saying, Buddha Dharma is confusion and is leading to hell or whatever their argument is, or it's like blasphemic to the gods, then that will actually not harm Buddha Dharma. But Buddha Dharma can only be harmed from inside, like if we spread wrong things about the Dharma, or dilute the Dharma. The example is, I think, like Dharma is like the lion, among the animals, classically speaking, and nothing can destroy the lion, but the worm inside the lion can destroy the lion, or the germs or the virus. So it has, the Dharma cannot be destroyed by somebody else out there, but only by the Buddhist. And then another point is, if we look at Buddha, then either we are referring to the statues that are destroyed, and then, of course, the statues, they are maybe holy and sacred for us, but of course, they don't have a mind or consciousness, so therefore they don't feel pain. And if we understand Buddhas as a state of Buddha, like Buddhahood, the realization of the three kayas, again, there it's good to read Uttara Tantra Shastra by Maitreya. Then, of course, this is totally undestroyable, this enlightened state, this realization. So, I mean, this enlightened state can't even be harmed by all the 84,000 kleshas, and of course, then a physical outside harm, cannot, or outside factor cannot harm that enlightened state. So what I'm trying to say is, like the kayas of the Buddha, or the realization of the Buddha, that is sort of undestroyable. If we understand this line like that, that Buddha is meant like that. And as I said, if we think Buddha is like a statue here, then that is then that is an inanimate object. And I was once in some discussions on that because of course it's painful for us to watch, if like sacred images or statues are destroyed, because we think that they carry a lot of blessing, and of course it's for us that is true. I heard some teachers say that the blessing will not be destroyed by that, but that is sort of then carried on, like, independent of that statue, for example, and that we are only angry because we cannot bear that destruction. And then this was a Drikung Khenpo, so he quoted Jigten Sumgön. I don't know if you have heard him. He's the founder of Drikung Kachö lineage. So Drikung Pa, so Jigten Sumgön, he said that Buddha activities, how Buddha is manifesting Buddha activities, that is really beyond our mind, how it's inconceivable, Also this you find in Uttaratam Shastra, by the way, but we cannot imagine it. And Buddha's activity is not only in form of Dharma teachings, but explicitly it was mentioned there that even if temples or statues are destroyed, then that destruction sort of is a Buddha activity, because especially nowadays, I heard the Khenpo say, nowadays then everybody will know about that, so everybody will come in contact with that Buddha statues that have been destroyed, and everybody will indirectly make a connection to the real Buddha that is represented by the statues, for example. So therefore, Jigten Sumgön is saying, whenever there's one statue destroyed, actually 1,000 statues will be built. That's how you put it. Not necessarily maybe physically, but maybe also physically as a reflex, like by the Buddhists who are sad that this one statue was destroyed, but especially mentally, because then we remember Buddha, we recollect Buddha's qualities, and we have inspiration, and so on. So therefore he is saying, Jigten Sumgön's point here is like, even though, yes, statues are destroyed, but strangely they lead to even having more Buddha activity, that is, I like that. That is very unusual take of it. But it makes sense, I think. But of course, we need to protect Buddha statues too. He's pointing more on what is happening in the mind. That like so many non-Buddhist people get connections through the newspapers then, or the news. I'm sure you remember in 2001, when the Taliban was destroying this. Bamiyan, right? The statues of Bamiyan in Afghanistan from the 6th century. Of course, that was all over the news, and then many people got connected through that and had Buddha in their mind, and that is the main thing. I recently, I don't know if somebody of you were there. I don't think so. We had a Kshetra where we studied a text by Longchenpa, and Longchenpa was saying that what is the Buddha Vajrayana, the speech of the Buddha? It is not the words, it's not the text, not the syllables, not the sentences, but that which is sort of triggered in our minds, So that is the word of the Buddha. So it's not the text that we are reading, but it's the mental image, or the experience or the change in our perspective that is happening in our mind or in our heart. That is the word of the Buddha. That is the speech of the Buddha. So likewise, I'm saying that because it's a little bit similar, you know. So even though a Buddha statue outside is destroyed, but if then more Buddhas appear in the minds of people, even though just for a short moment, then that is a Buddha activity. Yeah. Yeah, and then, long story short, therefore, yes, that is also not a reason to be angry with the one who is destroying these statues. Of course, if we think like Jigten Tsumgön, we should not end up thinking, therefore we should be thankful to the destroyers, but also not to that extent, yes. But we should not be angry, but we should be compassionate with them, of course. And wait, I actually was having these pictures. I show you. You know, these Bamyan Buddhas, maybe you remember. So this is how they used to look. You see, you know, how tall they are, you know, the humans down there. And then, yeah, then they have been destroyed and then the remains have been removed. And yeah, nowadays it's like, or that was at that time then it was used like, done like that. Okay. Okay, and now it is a similar thing. Yeah, not a statue or temple is destroyed, but maybe yeah, so some of our dear ones are injured. Verse 65. I should prevent anger arising towards those who injure my spiritual masters, relatives, and friends. And yeah, so yeah, it's always the same with patience, you know. It's only about not getting angry. That is the main point, you know. It's it doesn't mean we cannot have a sort of mentally sober debate then with the person who is maybe attacking or insulting our spiritual masters, relatives, and friends. But the main point here is not to lose our temper, not to get too frustrated or angry or hateful. But yeah, and that refers, as it says here, to spiritual masters, our guru, families, colleagues, friends, but also to our jhana, the vehicle, our Buddhist tradition that we are in. Yeah, I'm sure you know the debate between like Theravada or Shravakayana and Mahayana, and for those who recently have studied a little bit Mahayana Sutra Alamkara with Totulku, there, the second chapter is totally on that, this debate. So basically the Shravakayana, they are saying, no, Mahayana is not a teaching by the Buddha. And Mahayana is sometimes saying, oh, you Shravakayana, you are a small vehicle. So let's not go into that debate, but I'm just saying it is those statements are very existent, and also in the academic world, they are very debated and discussed, but also among practitioners. Yeah, some say Mahayana is not a Buddhist. Vajrayana, of course, not a Buddhist, and Dzogchen was taught by aliens. Those things are said, which is in the sense true, because Dzogchen started with Dharmakaya, who is not a human. Anyway, so if those things are said to our tradition, our religion, our vehicle, or our school, when they say, oh, you Gelux, you don't practice, you only study, or then they talk to the Nyingma person, you only practice, you don't study, or whatever, then yes, let's not get upset, frustrated. But instead, I should see, as in the manner shown before, that such things arise from conditions. Here again, you know, we are going back to the same logic. Jangchup, I will read your thing soon. So we are going to the same logic, you know, if there's somebody who is talking badly about our guru or about our lineage or school or tradition, whatever, you know, or about family, then this person who is talking badly about it is not really master over his or her own mind, you know, again, you know, but as shown before, it arises from causes and conditions, how Shantideva is saying here, you know. So this harm doer is not in control, has no power over him or herself, has no choice, you know, but is victim of the kleshas. And maybe you remember with the stick, you know, if somebody is kicking me with a stick, Shantideva is saying, you know, then we are not angry with the stick because we think we are clever and we are looking at the cause. So we are angry with the person who is behind the stick, you know. But then we should be more clever, Shantideva is saying, and look behind the person, and then we find his or her negative emotions, you know, that are the cause for him doing this. So likewise here, you know, we trace it back, and then we find so many causes and conditions in this mind of the harm doer, you know, and that the harm doer is totally controlled by these negative emotions. And therefore, therefore Shantideva, by guiding us in that contemplation, he is inspiring us to have more empathy and more understanding and mindfulness about the situation of that enemy, quote unquote. And then actually, I heard it recently. I forgot where. Then automatically, you know, in the moment you have really empathy and understanding with somebody, you know, compassion again is there. You know, it's automatically that anger or impatience or frustration will subside. Okay, now Jangchup. I agree that the speech of Buddha is like energy representation, but in classical text is mentioning a different kind of it. I know, in classical text, you know, we have like the three types of Buddha's words, you know, like what Buddha has said explicitly, what he has permitted, you know, to put in the sutras, or what the third type is, what he has inspired, you know, like in the Heart Sutra, we have all these three, you know, he has permitted Ananda to mention this, the setting. Then he has inspired Avalokiteshvara and Shariputra to discuss through his all-illuminating samadhi. And then in the Heart Sutra, Buddha is only saying lexo, lexo, you know, like, yes, good, well done, you know. So that is it, you know. But it's called sutra, even though he is not the main person speaking with the words. Yes, so from that point of view, Jangchup, yes, I agree. That is how it's classically said. But Longchenpa is really explicitly saying that this is still not the Buddha's word or Buddha's teaching, but the impact that it makes on our mind, that is the main teaching. And that is also how Dharma Chakra is explained, you know, the turning the wheel of Dharma, that you know, you really what the teacher is saying is like a wheel that is started and that is then rolling into the student's mind, basically, you know. So that kind of transmission and then the transformation that is happening in the student, that is when the wheel of Dharma has been turned. And that was the case, you know, with the first 5 students of Buddha. You know, they got it immediately during the teaching. You know, they didn't need to study later or contemplate, but they got it immediately, and that's why it was called turning the wheel of Dharma. But yes, I agree. In the classical text, it's like these three types, or what is Buddha's words is like, as I said, his direct words from his mouth, or what he permitted, or what he inspired by his blessing. But I like, as I said, Longchenpa's understanding of it, and to me it also made sense. And I remember in Australia, I was with maybe some of you know Alex Trezoglio. We were there with Tsongtse Khyentse Rinpoche, and then Rinpoche was saying sometimes, like in like outside the teaching, sometimes things that really didn't to us, they didn't make sense, But then I think it was Alex who then had the insight that it's not about the words that he's saying, but what is happening in our minds, thanks to that words. And that made so much sense then, then everything made so much sense what Rinpoche was saying. Because the words were like, what or why? But then it was so amazing what kind of emotions they triggered, and that we agreed upon was the main teaching. Yeah, therefore, when I recently heard how Longchenpa is explaining it, I was very happy to hear it like that. Okay, then we are really covering some verses today. Let's try another one. 66. Yeah, so we might think, yeah, it's still okay to be angry with the enemy, because the enemy is just nasty, to our lovers or loved ones. I mean, our friends or family or teachers. And so it says, since embodied creatures are injured by both animate beings and inanimate objects, why only bear malice to the animate? It follows that I should patiently accept all harms. So when we look into our life, and I think Emilia already gave some examples earlier. So what can harm us? It could either be sentient beings, or it could be inanimate things. So maybe like the virus is maybe like an inanimate thing. Yeah, I don't know, there are debates, but let's say earthquakes, or other diseases, So that is like an inanimate thing that can create suffering to us. And then, of course, they can be animate things. That means sentient beings. I think in our case, mostly we suffer from other humans. Maybe some suffer from animals, but normally it's the other way around. And I don't know, maybe some of you perceive ghosts, so then that could be. So, but generally there's just this differentiation here. So, and Shantideva is inviting us to wonder why we react differently to suffering that comes from an animate thing than from an inanimate thing. Because he's saying if inanimate thing is creating suffering to us, then our reflex maybe is sorry, but we say like shit happens, for example. Yeah, it's so we have sort of acceptance, and yeah, let's say maybe that's a good example. If there's some storm and then okay, let's use a coconut, is falling on my shoulder, so I'm and then it's painful, and then yeah, shit happens, or things happen, you can say. But if somebody else is like with a stick creating the same pain on my shoulder, then we have a total different reflex, and we think, yes, he is bad, he is my enemy. And yeah, and then we don't go to in the first case, we don't go to the police station, with the coconut and the storm. But in the second case, we might file a complaint about this person. yeah, so Shantideva is wondering why we make these differences. But I'm aware, I was really thinking about that. You know, when I worked as a doctor, it was sometimes also like, yeah, people were really angry with their disease, you know, that was also noticeable. But sometimes also more angry with themselves that they got the disease, or sometimes angry with God, you know, because they thought God was creating the disease. But I think it was more rare that they were explicitly angry with the disease. But of course, that also happens. But Shantideva is saying it doesn't matter actually if it's inanimate or animate, but or another way we could say, like, it's great that we are already patient if an inanimate thing is creating harm. So let's apply that also if animate beings are creating harm. So it doesn't matter, you know, if the other person maybe has had a bad intention with us. You know, we are not patient because we are not patient because they had a good or bad intention, but we are just patient because it's good for our mind, you know, in the situation, and we don't escalate the situation. And yeah, the same logic as earlier applies, you know, all animate beings, you know, when they harm us, as I try to point out, you know, that comes because of so many causes and conditions. And of course, inanimate objects also, that they can harm us, they also are dependent on so many causes and conditions. But example, yeah, the example with the coconut, you know, of course, the coconut has to be up there, you know, and so many causes, conditions had to come together over so many months at least, or years, you know, of course, that the palm tree is growing, and then, yeah, water, soil, time, and warmth, and then the wind, and that has again many causes, conditions. So in both cases, animate or inanimate causes, there are so many causes, conditions, and factors in play, like with the stick that I mentioned earlier, and the person behind, and the emotions behind. So therefore, yeah, it's equally, it's just, yeah, therefore, since there are so many factors active, let's not single out one factor like the animate beings, you know, and then the person, you know. But yeah, just understand, you know, that is just the consequence of so many factors. And of course, many of these factors are our own karma. I mean, we created them at some point. And therefore, yeah, let's have good understanding. Yeah, with the situation. Yeah, it's quite similar to what we have discussed already. Or do you have anything to discuss on that? Any doubts? Jon.
So our judicial system is the worst thing that could ever have happened to Buddhism. Is that correct?
What system?
Our judicial system, our going to court, filing a complaint with the police, and then they are going to start the investigation, and then they do look at circumstances, but not the ones we have in mind, I think. So the whole system is turning the other way around.
Yeah, I think it's not really addressing the issue. Yes, and the villains are not really getting the treatment they need, you know, but they are getting locked up and getting more angry or violent, maybe. Yeah, I think once some teacher said he thought all this justice system it's actually quite Christian, he said, because from Buddhist point of view, it would not be so necessary because, yeah, we believe in karma, and then, yeah, it's happening anyway. You know, they will suffer anyway, and that we should even have compassion with them. You know, because of their bad future that is awaiting them. But then, yes, I mean, that's of course a big topic, but still one can argue if somebody is really like harming others, then maybe it's good if he or she is locked up, you know, for a while, you know, and therefore not able to harm others anymore. But yeah, definitely whatever the police can find out, like causes and conditions, it's not what Shantideva is detecting as causes and conditions. That's definitely the case, yeah. Yeah, thank you. Okay, let's have one more. Should one person ignorantly do wrong? Somebody's beating us or killing. No, it's not about us so much, but maybe somebody is beating or killing a friend of us, you know. And another ignorantly become angry with him, then yes, usually the reflex of people is that they are angry, you know, with the killer, you know, and they're not compassionate with them. So then Shantideva is asking, yeah, who would be at fault and who would be without fault? So here Shantideva is only, I think, only looking at the emotional side of it. So, for example, if there's somebody who's in samsara, so that means he or she has basic ignorance, and therefore some anger or hatred, and therefore he or she is killing somebody, then that is happening. And then let's say I am observing that, and then because I'm also ignorant in samsara, and then I'm getting angry and hateful towards that killer, then basically who would be at fault and who would be without fault? And Shantideva is saying we are both similar, you know, we are both similarly full of kleshas, and of course the action is different, hopefully, you know. But then some people, like in that scenario, I would maybe kill the killer, you know, out of hatred, and then we are really similar, you know, like we are both ignorant beings who maybe have hatred, and therefore we kill somebody. But in the commentaries, it's not actually said like that. It's just like the killer is ignorant and has hatred, and I also am ignorant and hatred. So in that sense, we are similar, and therefore we should not be like. We should have that understanding, you know, that if we are developing the same emotions as them, then we are not really better, you know, and therefore, not only for our own sake, but of course for the sake of others, it's the same result of the contemplation. Let's be compassionate, you know, with them, you know, understand that they are out of control. I forgot to look it up, but there's always this story that comes to my mind. I think it's in Words of My Perfect Teacher, where like in one valley there's one geshe, and in another valley there's another one. So the one geshe, I think he has many women, and the other geshe is knowing it and is getting super angry and hateful towards that geshe who's full of desire. And then a third master is coming along, and then he actually thinks the geshe who's so hateful is is in the verse, is in the, has a more negative mind actually, and more destructive mind, because anger is, or hate is even more destructive than maybe the first Geshe, who has desire, which is appreciative at least, So I think that story fits a little bit here. Okay, there is one question by Jorge. Does all this mean that getting angry is something that we must learn to avoid? Yeah, desipation means that. Yes. Yeah, that was really in the beginning of the 6th chapter, where Shantideva is saying how destructive anger is. On all levels, like physically, I get high blood pressure, my pulse is faster, I get skin rashes, I get insomnia. Those examples were given. I lose my appetite. Then society-wise, I lose my friends and maybe family members, if I'm often angry, or my colleagues will avoid me, those things. And then spiritually, yeah, we destroy so many good things in our mind, so positive thinking or pure perception we destroy, or our merit we destroy. And that has then unwanted consequences for our future, because we destroy, let's say, good karma or merit, and then we will not enjoy then the results of the good karma, because it was destroyed. And therefore, yes, patience is then defined by Shantideva to not get angry. And because of understanding the disadvantages of being angry. But Shantideva, and also His Holiness the Dalai Lama, makes it very clear that patience doesn't mean to be passive and letting other people take advantage of us, but like freedom of anger is just very helpful for our mind, because then we have a clear and calm and serene mind where we can feel and act compassionately and wisely and skillfully. So therefore, patience is a strength and not a weakness, basically. But anger, just with a mind full of anger, that is just not possible to be wise and compassionate and skillful. But anger is more blinding us. And our perspectives is very narrow, like time-wise and focus-wise. And time-wise, we are not really like looking for sustainable solutions. I hope that makes sense. And yeah, from Mahayana point of view, anger is also distancing us from others. And not only that they run away if we are constantly angry, but we ourselves, we are we are enlarging the gap, or we are building the wall higher between ourselves and others. And Mahayana is always about renouncing that wall or renouncing that gap. Yeah, I think that's good enough with the verses today. Is there something else to discuss? Oh, indignation, you're writing. What is that? Sorry, my English is so bad, but I will look it up. Perhaps there is another more constructive reaction, which we call indignation. Sorry. So bad with sometimes with the word. Oh, indignation, Empörung in German. Yeah, not even that, because indignation, if it's really saying the thing what my dictionary is saying, there's a lot of aversion in it, no? But here the aim is to be really aversion free. Not because of dogmatic reasons. You would define it to say the right to say no. Yes. Oh yeah, that definitely. Yeah. Patience is just to keep our mind peaceful. Let's define it like that. Just to keep our mind peaceful and clear and aware. And then you decide in that specific situation with all your wisdom, compassion, and skillful means if you want to say yes or no, or maybe whatever is the best in that situation. But to really come to the best reaction in that situation, it is helpful not to be full of anger. So if we are patient, then we have much more chance to react in a constructive way in a situation. And yes, saying no might be the best. Sometimes running away might be the best, or saying a lot of words might be the best, or keeping silent might be the best, or inviting the other person for lunch could be the best, or maybe not seeing the other person for 3 days might be the best. But that is sort of then based on our best possible wisdom and compassion in that situation. But yes, no could be the wisest and most compassionate. Yeah, sorry, I didn't know that word, indignation. Thank you for teaching me that. Yeah, somebody else, anything? Okay, if not, then I have the dedication. Oh, Emilia has the final. No, wait, there's also Lois is unmuting, right?
It's okay. I my own question.
No, but say what you wanted to say, because
No,
Emilia
I was-
already said something.
I was going to say something about indignation. Is implying that you know better than the other person because you have the right to dismiss their point of view.
Okay.
It's a feeling of a little bit of superiority, I think. So I don't think it's appropriate at all
Okay.
to the situation, but it sort of it implies that you have a whole list of things that you could criticize the other person for. So it's complicated. It has a moral high ground. A dismissing. I'm
Okay.
so angry because I really know the truth of all of this.
Okay, but in George's private message, he defined it as the right to say no. So and that part I can totally accept. Yeah, but if we understand it how you just defined it, like yes, there should not be a feeling of superiority. Yes. Yeah, I'm really having the blessing of ignorance here. That I don't know.
Well, I think it's a Latin word, but if you know the English writer Jonathan Swift, he wrote Gulliver's Travels,
yeah,
and A Modest Proposal, and this whole idea of he was so vengeful and so putting people down. I mean, he was right on a certain level, but it made for good writing, but I don't think it makes for good relation.
Yeah, here I found it in the etymology. It could mean like disdain or contempt. That is how you
right.
just put it. And yes, that is definitely not something we want to develop, because as you said, it's like looking down on others. And I think, and not I think, but there's also like aversion or aggression in it.
Yes.
But the right to say no, or the ability to say no, or the freedom to say no, yes, that is definitely part of patience. Yeah. Yeah. Emilia, we are already a little bit over time. Do you have like a burning and short question, or is it like?
It's okay then.
Okay. Okay, thank you for this English class here. Indignation, because I had many years of Latin in school. I started when I was 10, actually. It's like, I think, the language that I learned for the longest time. But as you see, like, not so fruitful. But they always told us it's good to, it's very helpful then to learn other languages later, but there was no time then later, because yeah. But still, for me, it was helpful for medicine and so on. Okay, that was not important. Here, the prayers. By this merit, having attained omniscience and defeated the enemy of wrongdoing, may I free all beings from the ocean of existence with tumultuous waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Just as the heroic Manjushri, who knows everything as it is, and as the Vajrayana likewise did too, just so to follow all of them and train myself, I perfectly dedicate these meritorious actions. May the precious supreme bodhichitta arise in those in whom it has not arisen. Having arisen, may it not diminish, but ever expand more and more. As long as space remains, as long as the world remains, may I too remain to elevate the suffering of the world. May I, in each and every lifetime, carry the weight of Buddha Shakyamuni's teachings. And if I cannot bear that weight, at the very least, may I be born with the burden of thinking that the Buddha Dharma could reign. Thank you very much. Nice to meet and see familiar and new faces. Please stay healthy and unfrustrated. But yeah, Emilia, my last thought is like Jigme, like it doesn't really fit. So, but still, if we paraphrase it, yeah, to notice those movements in mind, you know, like aversion or frustration, that is worth like 1,000 kilos of gold. So don't feel guilty, you know, but just noticing is the precious thing here. Yeah, but then of course don't nourish it. Okay, thank you all. Take good care.
Thank you, Arne.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Yes, bye bye.